Hello everyone, I Sania, Faculty of BCA Department from Tecnia Institute of Advanced Studies. Today I am going to represent a lecture on direct memory access means DMA. In the direct memory access, the interface transfer data into and out of the memory unit through the memory bus. The transfer of data between a fast storage device such as magnetic disk and memory is often limited by the speed of the CPU. Removing the CPU from the path and letting the peripheral devices manage the memory buses directly would improve the speed of the transfer. The transfer technique is called direct memory access. During the DMA transfer, the CPU is idle and has no control of the memory buses. A DMA controller takes over the buses to manage the transfer directly between the input-output devices and memory. The CPU may be placed in an idle state in a variety of ways. One common method extensively used in microprocessor is to disable the buses through special control signals such as bus request and bus grant. The bus request input is used by the DMA controller to request the CPU. When the input is active, the CPU terminates the execution of the current instruction and plays the address bus, data bus and read-write lines into a high impedance state. High impedance state means the output is disconnected, like shown in this diagram. The CPU activates the bus grant output to inform the external DMA that the bus request can now take control of the buses to conduct memory transfer without processor. When the DMA terminates the transfer, it disables the bus request line and the CPU disables the bus grant, takes control of the buses and return to its normal operations. The transfer can be made in several ways that are DMA burst and DMA cycle stealing. DMA burst. In DMA burst transfer, a block sequence consisting of a number of memory words is transferred in continuous burst while the DMA controller is master of the memory buses. Second is cycle stealing. Cycle stealing allows the DMA controller to transfer one data word at a time, after which it must return control of the buses to the CPU. Next is DMA controller. The DMA controller needs the usual circuits of an interface to communicate with the CPU and the input-output devices. The DMA controller has three registers. First one is address register, second one is word count register, third is control register. Explain one by one. First is address register. Address register contain an address to specify the desired location in memory. Second one is word count register. Word count register hold the number of words to be transferred. The register is increment or decrement by 1 after each word transfer and internally tested for 0. Next one is control register. Control register specify the mode of transfer. Next is the unit communicates with the CPU via the data bus and control lines. The registers in the DMA are selected by the CPU through the address bus by enabling the DS, that is DMA select, and DRS, that is request select input, and the read and write inputs are bidirectional when the BG, that is bus grant, like shown in this diagram. Let's now explain the diagram. When the BG, that is bus grant input, is 0 and CPU can communicate with the DMA register through the data bus to read from or write to the DMA request. When the BG is equal to 1, the DMA can communicate directly with the memory by specifying an address in the address bus and activating the read and write control. Next is DMA transfer. The CPU communicates with the DMA through the address and data buses as with any interface unit. The DMA has its own address which activates the DS and RS lines. The CPU initializes the DMA through the data bus. Once the DMA receives the start control command, it can transfer between the peripheral and the memory. When BG is equal to 0, the read and write are inputs lines allowing the CPU to communicate with the internal DMA registers. When the BG is equal to 1, then the read and write are output lines from the DMA controller to the random access memory to specify the read and write operation of the data. Next is summary of the DMA. Interface is the point where a connection is made between two different parts of the system. The strobe control method of asynchronous data transfer employs a single control lines to time each transfer. The handshaking method solves the problem of strobe method by introducing a second control signal that provides a reply to the unit that initiates the transfer. Programmed input-output mode of data transfer, the operations are the results in input-output instructions, which is a part of the computer program. In the interrupt initiate input-output method, an interrupt facility and interrupt command is used to inform the device about the start and end of the transfer. In the DMA, that is direct memory access, the interface transfer the data into and out of the memory unit through the memory bus. I hope you understand the concept of DMA. Like, share and subscribe Tecnia TV. Thank you so much.